Have you ever stopped to think about something truly intriguing? Imagine for a moment, we're talking about a civilization that mummified millions of animals. Millions indeed. Cats, crocodiles, ibises, falcons, snakes. The list is practically endless. The ancient Egyptians transformed mummification into a true art, preserving creatures of all sizes and shapes. But here's the enigma that left archaeologists scratching their heads for decades. Where were the lions? That's right, my friend. The lion, that majestic animal that symbolized the power of the pharaoh himself, that represented the strength of the scorching desert sun, that was emblazoned on thrones, beds, amulets, and temples throughout ancient Egypt. This same lion, so important in Egyptian culture, practically didn't appear among the discovered mummies. Until recently, only a single lion mummy had been found. Just one, among millions of mummified animals. It doesn't make sense, does it? It's like walking into a museum dedicated to Brazilian soccer and finding only one photo of Pelé. It simply doesn't add up. And it was precisely this mystery that intrigued generations of Egyptologists. But before we dive into the discovery that changed everything, we need to go back in time, much further than you imagine. We need to travel to a time when Egypt was a very different place from the desert we know today. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine we're around the year 1000 BC. The banks of the Nile aren't just green strips amid the sand. No, the landscape is much more lush. And roaming through these lands, drinking water on the banks of the great river, hunting under the relentless sun, there they were. Entire prides of lions, that's right. Wild lions in complete freedom circulated through the territory we now know as Egypt. It's hard for us, people of the 21st century, to imagine this scene. After all, when we think of lions, our minds immediately travel to the African savannas, much further south. But the truth is that 3,000 years ago, these big cats were neighbors to the Egyptians. And they weren't just distant neighbors either. Some of these lions even entered the palaces of royalty. Yes, that's what you heard. Great pharaohs kept lions as pets. It may seem crazy to us today, but there are ancient illustrations showing Ramesses II, one of the most powerful pharaohs in history, accompanied by a lion sitting by his side. Tutankhamun, the boy pharaoh whose untouched tomb amazed the modern world, was also depicted with these majestic felines. Think about the symbolism of this. The pharaoh wasn't considered just a king. He was seen as a living god, the personification of divine power on earth. And by his side as a companion was the lion, the fiercest warrior of nature, the supreme predator. The message was clear. Just as the lion dominates the plains, the pharaoh dominates Egypt. The Roman writer Claudius Aelianus, who lived between the 2nd and 3rd centuries of our era, left a fascinating account of his visit to Saqqara, one of the most important necropolises of ancient Egypt. He described a scene that today seems almost surreal to us. Lions being kept inside temples, to the sound of music, while being fed beef. Imagine the scene. The sacred environment of an Egyptian temple, with its imposing columns covered in hieroglyphs, the aroma of incense in the air, musicians playing their ancestral melodies, and there, in the midst of it all, lions being treated as sacred creatures. But here's something curious that makes our story even more intriguing. Unlike other animals that were strongly associated with specific deities, like the ibis to the god Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing, or the jackal to Anubis, the guardian of the dead, the lion never had this exclusive bond with a single deity. Yes, there are connections. The mummies that were found are probably linked to Bastet, the cat goddess, and her sister Sekhmet, the fearsome warrior goddess with a lioness face. Sekhmet was a powerful deity, representing the destructive force of the sun, capable of bringing plagues and destruction to Egypt's enemies. But the lion, as a symbol, was greater than that. It permeated all of Egyptian culture in a more comprehensive, more diffuse way. Connie Lord, an Egyptologist at the University of Sydney and specialist in the Animal Mummy Research Project, puts it clearly. The lion played an enormous role in ancient Egyptian iconography. The lion was a symbol of royal authority, but images of lions were also used on everyday objects like chairs and beds. Think about that for a moment. We're not just talking about temples and monuments, we're talking about household furniture. Ordinary people, at least those with some resources, decorated their homes with images of lions. Was it purely decorative? Lord suggests there was probably a magical meaning related to protection. Sleeping in a bed decorated with lions might have been like having fierce guardians protecting your sleep. The pharaohs, of course, took this to another level. Participating in lion hunts was a way to demonstrate supremacy, to prove that the pharaoh was as powerful as the animal he hunted, or even more so. Amenhotep III, for example, had no modesty about his feats. He claimed to have killed 102 lions in just the first 10 years of his reign. Truth or propaganda exaggeration? Well, pharaohs were never very modest in their claims, and then as the centuries passed, something changed. Egypt's climate gradually became more arid. Rainfall decreased, vegetation receded, and the lion prides began to migrate south in search of more favorable territories. But even after wild lions disappeared from the banks of the Nile, their presence in Egyptian culture remained unwavering. Statues continued to be sculpted. Amulets continued to be worn. Stories continued to be told. If you're enjoying this journey through ancient Egyptian history, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos full of fascinating curiosities like this one. And this is where we return to our central mystery. With all this cultural importance, with all this presence in Egyptian iconography and religion, where the heck were the lion mummies? The ancient Egyptians mummified practically everything that moved. I'm not exaggerating. Archaeologists have found cat mummies by the thousands, mummies of crocodiles, falcons, ibises, baboons, snakes, even beetle mummies. The Egyptians turned animal mummification into a massive industry, especially during the late period of Egyptian civilization. These animals were mummified for various reasons. Some were beloved pets of their owners who wished them to accompany them in the afterlife. Others were votive offerings. You'd go to the temple, buy a mummy of an animal associated with that specific deity, and offer it as a form of prayer or thanksgiving. And a few special animals were considered living manifestations of the gods themselves on earth, like the Apis bull. But the lions? Just one mummy. A single discovery recorded throughout the entire history of Egyptian archaeology until 2019. It was then that a team of archaeologists, led by Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, made a discovery that left the academic world in an uproar. In Saqqara, that same necropolis where Claudius Aelianus had seen living lions being fed in temples centuries before, researchers found something extraordinary. 5 lion mummies. Not 1. 5. It may not seem like much to you, but for Egyptologists it was like finding a treasure chest. These 5 mummies represented a 500% increase in the number of known lion mummies. Overnight, our knowledge about lion mummification simply exploded. The mummies were found in the Bubasteion necropolis, and here's a deliciously ironic detail. Bubasteion literally means catacomb of cat mummies. That's right. The lion mummies, these majestic big cats, were discovered in a cemetery dedicated to their smaller domestic cousins. It's almost as if the ancient Egyptians were playing a trick on future archaeologists. Experts determined that these were lion cubs, probably about 8 months old when they died. Each measured approximately 90 centimeters in length. They weren't yet imposing adults, but they were already substantially larger than any domestic cat. And they weren't alone. Along with the lion cubs, archaeologists discovered a true collection of artifacts. Wooden and bronze statues representing cats, as well as other animal mummies, including snakes and crocodiles. It was as if they had found an ancient zoo preserved for eternity. Based on the style of the artifacts and other archaeological indicators, the Supreme Council of Antiquities dated the discovery to Egypt's 26th dynasty, which ruled between 664 and 525 BC. This was a fascinating period in Egyptian history, known as the Site period, when Egypt experienced a cultural renaissance after centuries of foreign domination. It was a time when Egyptians looked to their glorious past and tried to revive ancient traditions, including apparently the mummification of lions. But this brings us back to the burning question: why so few lion mummies? If the Egyptians were so capable of mummifying any creature, if the lion was so culturally important, what explains this scarcity? Connie Lord offers an interesting theory. She suggests that the lack of a strong association with a specific deity and a dedicated cult may be the reason why lion mummies are found much less frequently than other animals. Think about it. If you were a devotee of Thoth, you offered ibis mummies. If you venerated Sobek, the crocodile god, you offered crocodile mummies. But if you wanted to honor the general concept of royal power and protection, well, perhaps a lion was a bit excessive when a cat would do. But there's another possibility, and it's even more exciting. Perhaps we simply haven't discovered the lion cemeteries yet. Saqqara is huge, immense, and despite more than a century of intensive excavations, vast areas still remain unexplored, hidden under meters of desert sand. And if you want to follow every new archaeological discovery and unravel more mysteries of the ancient world, hit that like button and turn on notifications. Now, let's talk about something that may seem a bit morbid, but is absolutely fascinating from a scientific point of view: the process of mummifying a lion. There really are no practical reasons for the lack of lion mummies, Connie Lord states with conviction. The ancient Egyptians were perfectly capable of mummifying a creature of this size. And she's absolutely right. The Egyptians mummified apis bulls, sacred animals that were treated with the highest degree of reverence and care. These bulls were enormous, easily weighing more than a ton, and the Egyptians applied the most sophisticated mummification techniques to them, including the careful removal of all internal organs, a process that required skill, anatomical knowledge, and, let's be honest, a strong stomach. If they could mummify a gigantic bull, they certainly could mummify a lion. But there is a practical difference, and it was pointed out by Salima Ikram, an archaeologist at the American University in Cairo, who conducted CT scans on some of the discovered lion mummies. The difference: the smell. Think about this for a moment. A bull is an herbivore. Its diet consists of grass and grains. But again, a lion is a pure carnivore. Its diet is entirely based on meat, and when you're removing the internal organs of a carnivore, especially the digestive system containing decomposing meat, well, let's just say it wasn't a job for just anyone. The embalmers who dealt with lions probably deserved extra pay. But the temporary discomfort of ancient embalmers is little compared to the scientific importance of these discoveries for us today. Salima Ikram didn't mince words when evaluating the discovery. It is extremely important. Why? Because these mummies are like biological time capsules. They can tell us things that no ancient text ever recorded. How exactly did the ancient Egyptians capture lions? Did they breed lions in captivity, as we do today in zoos? Or was there a lion trade, with animals being brought from other regions? Modern CT scans allow scientists to examine these mummies without having to unwrap them, which would be destructive. They can see the bones, identify signs of disease or injury, determine the exact age of the animals, and even analyze the contents of their stomachs to discover what they ate in their last days of life. And each piece of information is a piece of the larger puzzle of what life was like in ancient Egypt. Were these 8-month-old lion cubs captured in the wild, or born in captivity? If they were captured, how did the Egyptians manage to do this without being killed by the cubs' parents? And if they were raised in captivity, does this mean the Egyptians had lion breeding programs, perhaps specifically for religious purposes? These are fascinating questions, and the answers are literally wrapped in layers of ancient linen, waiting to be discovered. But perhaps the most exciting aspect of all this is the possibility that this discovery is just the beginning. Ikram expresses cautious optimism. It's quite possible that, with the progress of excavation at Saqqara, more lion mummies will come to light. And she has good reasons for this optimism. Classical writers of antiquity, Greeks and Romans who visited Egypt, mentioned mummified lions. They spoke of entire cemeteries dedicated to these animals. And archaeologists like Ikram have been searching for these cemeteries for years. Now, with this discovery at Bubasteion, they have a clue. If 5 lion mummies were found in a location dedicated primarily to cats, what else might be hidden in the vast catacombs of Saqqara? Is there really an entire cemetery of lions, still undiscovered, waiting under the sands? The possibility is tantalizing. Saqqara is an active archaeological site, with new discoveries being made regularly. Just in recent years, archaeologists have unearthed dozens of perfectly preserved human sarcophagi, a high priest's tomb, and countless other treasures. Each excavation season brings new surprises. And here's something that should make us stop and think. We're in 2025, more than 2 centuries after Champollion's decipherment of hieroglyphics, more than a century after the spectacular discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb, decades after the beginning of systematic excavations at all major Egyptian sites. And yet, we're still making fundamental discoveries. We're still learning basic things about how the ancient Egyptians lived, what they valued, how they treated the animals around them. It's humbling in a way. It reminds us of how little we really know, of how many secrets are still kept under those golden sands of the Egyptian desert. These lion mummies tell us a story bigger than themselves. They speak to us of a civilization that saw the divine in all living creatures, that believed so deeply in the afterlife, that it invested enormous resources to ensure that even animals could make that journey. They speak to us of people who looked at a lion and saw not just a dangerous predator, but a symbol of everything that was powerful and sacred in their world. And perhaps these 5 small mummies are the beginning of something bigger. Perhaps they are the first clues that will lead archaeologists to that legendary lion cemetery that ancient writers mentioned. Imagine the discovery. Not 5 mummies, but 50, 100, maybe more. A complete pantheon of big cats, preserved for eternity, each with its own story to tell. For now, these 5 mummies remain as silent witnesses to a time when lions walked the banks of the Nile, when pharaohs kept them in palaces, when the roar of these animals echoed through the temples of Saqqara. They are a bridge between the ancient past and our present, tangible reminders that there is always more to discover, more to learn, more mysteries waiting to be unraveled in the eternal sands of Egypt. And who knows? The next great discovery may be happening at this very moment, with shovels and brushes, carefully removing sand from something that hasn't seen daylight in more than 2,000 years. Ancient Egypt still has many secrets to share, and each discovery brings us a little closer to truly understanding this extraordinary civilization that continues to fascinate us millennia after its end. If you made it this far, you're the kind of person who loves exploring the mysteries of the past. Subscribe to the channel and join our community of history explorers. Together, we'll unravel more fascinating secrets of ancient civilizations.